He immediately noticed something was off. Takayama wasn't curled up by the heater like always. Uh-oh. Instead, he was staying at attention by the
ど
wall.
うしたんですか？
俺はいや自分はいつも通りにしているであります。
I decided, clearly not convinced.
そういや、二見旅館の部屋を乾刑事が取っているという話。
そんなことは関係なく、自分はこうして公務に励んでいるであります。
無理をして公務に支障をきたすのならばやめたまえ。
Middle-aged inspector, Inui, emerged from the rear of the station.
こんにちは。お久しぶりです。
第一発見者の小僧か。
Inui, perhaps as a byproduct of his profession, recognized Ayato with a glance despite all the years that had passed.
よく覚えておいでですね。
捜査が長期化する事件は多い。関係者の顔は一通り覚えている。
Inui settled into a chair. Takayama immediately pushed said chair toward the table.
余計なことはしなくていい。
はあ、ではケイラに行ってまいります。
Takayama saluted and raced out the door.
君の要件を済ますことは彼の仕事ではないのかね。
自分はむしろあなたに聞きたいことがあります。
Ayato knew Takayama would probably be of no help here.
何かね。ああ、腰掛けたまえ。
失礼します。
Ayato sat down in the chair Inui gestured to, back straight as an
今
arrow.
回こちらにいらっしゃったのは戦前の事件を調べるためですか？
休暇を取ってたまたま来たに過ぎん。
Ah, of course, that's the official reason, right?
県警はすでに捜査を終了している。進駐軍によって警察組織の再編も迫られているから。
それで乾さんは個人で調べようとしているんで。
個人でできることなど限られておるよ。素人にはなおさらだ。
Inui stared deep into Ayato's
自
eyes.
分が何か。
素人が余計な真似をするなということだ。
You saw right through me, huh? Inui somehow knew Ayato had been digging into Satsuki's homicide. Is he on grandfather and Yoshimitsu's side?
あなたたち玄人が引き上げてしまったから皐月のことも犯人も見つからなかったんじゃないですか。
Ayato's words were laced with venom.
たかが薬や風情に言われただけで捜査をやめるなんて情けないですね。
それについては同感だ。
Inui nodded.
我々下っ端は捜査終了を告げられればそれに従うしかない。
やっぱり調べに来たんですね。
明確な証拠があれば上も動かざるを得ないだろう。
Inui sipped some tea.
何か当てはあるんですか？
それはこれからだが。
Probably found Ayato suspicious since he was the first one to find Satsuki's body.
別の話でしたら。
何かね。
昭和の初期にここで起こった財前恵子という女性が殺された事件についてです。
その件は担当していない。
Inui shook his head.
20年近く前とはいえ川瀬幸子以前に起こったたたりですよ。あなたが知らないはずないと思いますが。
捜査には参加していないが内容は全て知っている。飲み屋の経営者だった被害者が殺され。
そのようですね。
母親について聞きたいのかね。
いえ、今は事件のことが知りたいんです。
そうか。
Inui closed his eyes.
あれも結局立件されることはなかった。捜査本部に横槍が入ったらしい。
当然うちでしょうね。
それは分からんよ。ただ被害者が経営していた飲み屋にはしばしばひながみしずるが出入りしていたそうだ。
How would my father be connected to this? Oh, buddy.
君はたたりというものを信じるかね。
事件は全て人が起こしたものだと思っています。
That was all Ayato managed to muster.
私も同感だよ。たたりなどとは周りが勝手に騒いでいるに過ぎん。それも犯人が意図。
あなたは父が殺人を犯したと考えているのですか？
そうとしか考えられぬよ。随分と金を無心されていたようだからな。財前恵子の生活は困窮していたそうだ。
それだけですか？
ひながみしずるがあちこちの女に手をつけていることも調べはついている。息子の君に伝える内容ではないと思うがね。
それこそ自分には関係のないことですよ。
What his father did was none of Ayato's concern.
ひながみしずるが財前恵子と関係を持ち。
証拠は何かあるんですか？
いや出てこなかった。 何しろ財前恵子も雛神理香も第一
Ah,
発見者は仕草さやだったからな。
what a coincidence.
さやさんが
What does that have to do with there being no evidence, though?
まさかさやさんが証拠を全て隠したと言いたいのですか？
彼女ではない。雛神家の不手際を仕草が隠滅することはこの集落の特異性を考えれば十分にあり得ることだ。
You know, he drank his tea again.
何しろ被害者の遺体は川瀬幸子と同様ここの者がたたりと呼ぶ装飾がなされていたからな。
装飾？
それを言うわけにはいかん。重要な手がかりなのだから。
そうですか。
おかしくはあるまい。それ以前のたたりと呼ばれた者も両家にとって都合の悪い人物が死んでいる。
ではなぜ母は自殺したんですか？
Though it hadn't been a part of his original plan, Aito ended up asking about his mother after all.
夫の所業を知ったからではないのかね。不貞を働き殺人まで犯した夫に絶望、死ぬ理由としては十分だ。
でも証拠はないんですよね。
ここの連中はたたりに対して口が重い。まともな証言もない状態で導き出した答えだよ。
You know, he got up and picked the kettle off the heater.
飲むかね？
いえ、結構です。
You know, he nodded and refilled his own
さ
teacup.
つきが殺された件について。
あれから巫女と呼ばれる女は祭りに出ていないそうだな。巫女は現れてから数年は舞を奉納すると聞いていたが、
彼女が巫女だったと言いたいのですか？
他にどのような可能性があるかね。
確か当時も証言したと思いますが、自分はさつきと一緒に巫女が舞うのを見ています。
それはあくまで巫女の面をかぶった人物だろう。
Aito couldn't argue with that.
おそらく仕草家内部の問題に巻き込まれ殺されたのだろう。連中の知らぬ存ぜぬの通し具合からするとな。
それも結局。
それを探しに来ている。
Is there even any left after all this time? Been nearly 5 years since Satsuki's murder and over 15 since Keiko's Aizen's. There wasn't any hope of finding solid evidence on either front. And yet Ayato wasn't planning to throw in the towel anytime soon. We didn't ask him about Ayako. Ask him if he knows anything about Ayako. You had the detective man right there. You didn't bring up Ayako. Come on, Ayato, you're slipping. Ayato returned to his room following dinner. His father wasn't around. But I didn't expect the man would have divulged the truth about his mother's suicide even if he was. He'd figure he could have at least probed him. Is there anything I can do to find out what kind of man he is? Ayato wasn't very familiar with this sort of thing, so he had no idea how he'd go about proving his father's infidelity. What's more, all this had gone down over 15 years ago. Yeah, it's not like he keeps like a logbook, right, hidden under his pillow, like, March 2nd, slept with the lady at the bar. Thus, Ayato didn't believe there'd be any proof remaining, not just because of what he'd told Inui. Trying to acquire testimony probably wouldn't be much help either. How many people would openly confess to infidelity, much less homicide after all? Hey Dad, did you, cheat on Mom and then kill the woman you slept with? Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally did that, yep. Is there anyone else I can ask? Someone who wouldn't rat me out? Uncle Yuzuru, perhaps? Seems as good a place to start as any. If you say so, bud. Well, that is true, right? Yuzuru married into the Kuroyas even though he was a Hinagami. Like, the Kuroyas are a somewhat prominent family, but like, the Hinagamis are the top of the top, right? But he still married out of that family. So, seemingly there was some conflict there. Either they wanted to get rid of him or he wanted out, right? Perhaps I'll pay him a visit tomorrow. For the time being, though, I can at least snoop around Father's room. I had to open his closet and search for a flashlight. Eventually found one in a box containing paints and drawing paper. However, it didn't turn on when he flipped the switch. Seemed the batteries were dead. I had to unscrew the bottom of the handle, causing white powder to spill out. The batteries must have corroded. It was with that thought Ayato took them out and rubbed their ends, knocking rust off them. Suddenly Ayato heard Yuka's voice in the hallway.
なんだい？
He placed the flashlight on his desk.
失礼します。綾人様、お薬をお持ちしました。
ああ、ありがとう。カレンじゃなくていいのかい？
He had some vague recollection of her throwing a tantrum the last time that had happened.
お嬢様は 今晩もお稽古で出ておりまして。
あいつも大変そうだな。
Ayato sat up and took off his shirt.
それでは失礼します。
Yuka unraveled his bandages.
お肌は随分と良くなってきているようですね。
かゆみもなくなっているからね。もうすぐで治ると思う。
そうだと思いますよ。あ、ではお布施になってください。
Ayato did as he was asked. Yuka wrung a towel in a basin full of hot water before washing his back.
産んでいるところも減ってきましたから、もうすぐお風呂にも入れると思いますよ。
そうだといいな。
A long soak in the Hutami Inn's open-air bath sounded like music to his ears.
そうだ、ゆかさん。新しい乾電池はないかな。
ええ、ありますよ。
Yuka glanced at the desk.
これ使えないかもしれませんね。
Yuka got up and left the room with a dismantled flashlight in hand. It wasn't long before she returned with a new one altogether.
はい、
ありがとう。そうだゆかさん。
何でしょうか。
親父の部屋を調べたいんだ。浮気をしていた証拠を見つけたくてね。
God damn, Ayato, you really just throwing that out there for Yuka, huh? Jesus, dude. It's one thing to be like, I would like to investigate my father's room. Like, I need proof he was cheating on my mother. No, what's your reaction, Yuka?
そんなダメですよ。お許しもなく旦那様のお部屋に入ることは禁じられていますから。
She does not even care for his reasoning. He's like, oh, no, you cannot enter his room.
そこを何とかしてくれないかな。
いけません。
Yuka stubbornly spurned Ayato.
そういうことはおよしになってください。
Because you know
お願い
something.
ですから。
Because you know something. Yuka grabbed Ayato's arm.
わかったよ。
He could feel her hands trembling. However, he also understood why she felt the need to prioritize her master's honor over his son's request.
お薬塗りますね。
Yuka's hands glided across his back. Could just snoop around my father's room without Miss Kiramura's help. Would there even be anything to find, though? He was trying to investigate a matter that had occurred nearly 20 years ago. If anything, he'd be far stranger to find proof of his father's infidelity still in his room after all this time. If Shizuru had killed his mistress, indirectly causing his wife's suicide, he probably would have destroyed any and all evidence when no one was watching. That settles it. I'll stick to my plan of visiting Uncle Yuzuru. Though he'd married into the Kuroya family, Yuzuru had originally been a Hinagami. Ayato didn't know if he'd talk, but he'd just have to risk it.
起きてください。包帯を巻きますから。
Ayato did as he was asked once again. Yuka attached ointment-lathered strips of paper to his back and wrapped them in bandages.
はい。
ありがとう。
Ayato donned his shirt.
ではあまり動かないでそのままお休みになってくださいね。
Yuka rose to her feet.
わかっているよ。おやすみ。
おやすみなさいませ、綾人様。
Yuka left the room. Ayato lay face down in his futon. His goal wasn't to investigate whether his father really was an adulterer or not. He was merely doing so in order to find out if the man had a motive to kill Keiko Zaizen. But if his father wasn't the murderer, then who was? The first possibility that came to mind was Saya Shigasa, the one who'd found the body. She didn't have a clear motive either, naturally. However, when considering the links to Shachiko Kawase's murder, the chance that she was the murderer, or at least heavily involved, grew. After all, both women had been made to look like victims of the curse. That's the thing, Saya's like the most suspicious one over there too. Now you can tell she's up to shit. But what of Satsuki's case then? Back when her body was found, rumors said she'd also been killed by the curse. And yet, unlike the others, all her limbs had been missing. Why was that? Dawn eventually arrived with Ayato no closer to an answer than when he'd begun poring over the facts. Ayato departed for the Kuroya clinic around noon the next day. He knocked on the door and waited.
あら、隼人君いらっしゃい。
いえ、ゆずるさんはいますか？
ええ、いるわよ。
失礼します。
隼人君か。久しぶりだな。
お久しぶりです、ゆずるさん。
I'm just like already like bracing myself for when Ayato just is very blunt and to the point, like, hey, so did you know if my dad was sleeping around or not? Like, wow, long time no see, bud. All right.
君は院長が担当していたはずだが、何かあったのかい？
ええ、まあ、ゆずるさんに聞きたいことがありまして。
Ayato glanced at Nanako.
私はちょっと席を外しますね。
Nanako took the hint and left the two alone.
それで何かな。
父についてのこと
しずるの。
Yuzuru gave Ayato his full attention.
何かあったのかい。
父の昔のことが知りたいんです。主にそこについて。
Yuzuru nearly burst out laughing.
あいつは親父の前だけでは真面目ぶってるんだよ。多分子供のお前たちの前でもだろうがね。
Yuzuru dragged his seat back and popped a cigarette between his lips.
浮気とかしていたんですか。
なんだ、薬屋のスキャンダルでも探してるのか。
違いますよ。ただちょっと
I've
気に
heard
なってるだけです。
rumors.
あいつは昔から手が早くてな。あちこちの女に手をつけていた。リカとの結婚が決まってからも遊び歩いていたよ。
Ayato's ears perked up upon hearing his mother's name.
この辺りには予売の文化などはなかったが、あいつはお構いなしだったようだな。
そんなことも
あったんだよ。もっともリカが死んだ後、親父殿にバレてからは下火になったようだがね。
もしかして母さんが自殺したのは。
リカは遺書も残さなかったからな。あの時何が起こったのか、さやさんも知らないと言っていたな。
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't expecting Yuzuru to be so forward about it. Be like, oh yeah, no, your dad slept around a lot. And I mean a lot.
さやさんが母さんの遺体を最初に見つけたそうですね。
そこまで知っていたか。あの二人は昔から仲が良くてな。何か知っていればと思ったんだが。
But maybe she does know something and she's just not revealing anything. That's it. Yuzuru stubbed a cigarette out in an ashtray.
まさかとは思いますが、父とさやさんの間にも何か関係があったん
God,
です
that
か。
was right, was that? There was a point where Ayato came around at some point. I think it was Ayato. Or no, it was Karen, wasn't it? Was it Karen? I think it was Karen. Karen was at the shrine for some reason. And she had passed by Shizuru and Saya, like having a conversation. And at first, Shizuru was like shocked. She's like, "Oh no, who walked in on us?" And they realized it was just Karen. He's like, "Oh, hey, Karen, don't mind this. Also, don't tell anyone you saw us here. Don't fucking say anything." There was that point, yeah.
それはないだろうな。
Maybe there wasn't anything romantic between them, but there's something between them. Yuzuru shook his head without a second thought.
さやさんはリカと仲が良かったと言ったろ。それもあってリカと結婚するしずるを随分と嫌っていたからね。
Oh. I did not realize Saya swung that way.
それに仕草の女に手をつければすぐ親父殿にバレるだろうさ。
Yuzuru got up and gave Ayato a tap on the shoulder.
君も気をつけた方がいいぞ。あの男の血を引いているのだからね。
Yeah.
僕は
Satsuki's face flashed through his mind for a moment.
冗談だよ。
Yuzuru left the room as if to say the conversation was over. Ayato departed the Koroya clinic. He decided to drop the new medicine he'd gotten from Nanako off at home before going anywhere else. Yuko was there out in front sweeping the snow.
綾人様、お帰りなさいませ。
ただいま。これ新しい塗り薬。
かしこまりました。今のお薬がなくなってからでよろしいのですか？
前の薬は新しくできた皮膚には刺激が強すぎるそうだから、膿がなくなったら変えてくれと言っていた。
それでしたらもう変えた方がよろしいでしょうね。
ああ、よろしく頼むよ。
お帰りなさい、兄様。
Karen and Yu were in the living room.
ただいま。珍しいな。若女将が一人で家に来るなんて。
She usually tagged along with Megari.
今日はおばあちゃんの使いで手紙を届けに来ただけだから。
そうだったんだ。
兄様、病院へ行ってきたのでしょ？
ああ、だいぶ良くなってきたみたいだよ。
Ayato didn't want Karen to know the real reason he'd gone.
あまり無理をなさらないでくださいね。
Shut up.
心配はいらないよ。
He highly doubted playing detective was posing any obstacle to his recovery.
おひな、 そろそろ時間じゃない？
Time for what?
そうだ。
Karen rose to her feet.
今日も稽古かい？
ええ。もしかしたら次のお祭りから私が舞うかもしれないの。
Karen sounded thrilled.
そうなんだ。だったらきちんと練習しないとな。
ええ。
じゃあ私は帰るわね。
You got up.
ああ、送るよ。
よろしくお願いしますね、兄様。
You and Ayato marched side by side.
なあ、若女将。
何？
大女将のばあちゃんはうちに何を知らせたんだ？
You stopped short.
多分警察の人のことだと思う。ご中心じゃないかしら。
Yeah. Because obviously the Hinagamis run shit, so of course they're like, we know that inspector's over there. Make sure you tell us if he's doing anything. Tell us what he's up to.
何かあったのか？
まだ何もないと思うわ。おばあちゃんは巫女様の信奉者だから。
Almost all outsiders stay at the Hutami Inn. Thus, it was inevitable that the inn's proprietress would keep a close eye on them.
おばあちゃんに言わせれば、ひながみ家は代々巫女の血を継いでいるそうだから。
巫女の血を継いでいる？
おばあちゃんが勝手にそう思っているだけよ。でもそう考えているお年寄りは多いみたい。
そうなんだ。
The Shigasas, the Hinagamis, and the Oracle were the ones who held all the power in the settlement. With that in mind, it wasn't surprising that such rumors would spread amongst the populace. Plus, it only stood to reason that the mystery of where the Oracle had disappeared to would naturally lead to theories such as those. Though Ayato had never heard anything of the sort, of course.
おばあちゃんに話を聞いてみる？
You made that suggestion like she'd read Ayato's mind.
そうだね。
Perhaps he'd learned something about the past in the process. Ayato arrived at the Hutami Inn, which was located not too far from the heart of Maihina. The snow had been completely cleared off in the front, likely due to the nature of the establishment.
乾刑事さんは？
駐在所に行ってるんじゃないかしら。旅館には寝に戻ってくるだけみたいだし。
Ayato stepped inside.
おばあちゃん。
You called into the inn.
なんじゃ、ゆう。
A short-statured elderly woman passed through the curtain by the wall. She was Yoshie Hutami, Yu's grandmother, and the proprietress of the Hutami Inn.
おお、ひな神の御曹司じゃございませぬか。
どうも、こんにちは。
Ayato awkwardly reciprocated her pleasantries with his own.
これゆう、御曹司を暖かい部屋へ案内せんか。
いえ、ここで結構ですよ。今日はおかみさんに聞きたいことがあって来ただけですから。
そりゃもったいないことで。なんなりと聞いておくんなまし。
はあ。
Ah. Though discombobulated by Yoshie's reverence, Ayato went forward with his questions all the same.
巫女について何かご存知のことはありませんか？
おお、巫女様か。御曹司の方がよくご存知でっしゃろ。なんせ母上殿ですからな。
母さんが巫女だったのですか？
There's a possibility he considered, sure. But actually hear it from another's mouth floored him.
巫女様は代々ひな神家にこし入れなさっておいでじゃ。リカ様もその先代のマリコ様もみんな巫女様だったんじゃよ。
Okay. Right. Because wasn't the original that's the fucking body double thing. There's the original and then the double. Wasn't the original supposed to marry into the family then? But it was the body double who had slept with Ayato and essentially taken that away from the original. So the body double got put on display like that, right?
あまり真に受けないでね。
You whispered into Ayato's ear.
さつき様とおっしゃったかの。あの巫女様もゆくゆくは御曹司の嫁となられたでしょうにの。
さつきはただのお客様だったのでは？
お客様として巫女様を迎え入れるのが昔からの習わしじゃからの。
しかし自分はあの祭りの日、さつきと共に巫女の舞を見ていました。
巫女様なのじゃから身を二つに分けることなど造作もないじゃろう。
If that were true, then she wouldn't even be human. Is all of this just old mistress's deluded ramblings? However, despite these misgivings regarding her source's credibility, Ayato pressed on with his inquiries.
綾子という名前に心当たりはありませんか？
あやこ。さあの。ゆうの友達かい？
いえ。
じゃあわからんの。
そうですか。
Though he hadn't expected much, part of Ayato had hoped this little trip would provide the break he needed.
そうそう。
I mean,
御曹司
technically,
うち
it
に
kind
泊ま
of
って
did
おる
provide you
男
a
には
break,
気をつけな
right?
され。
Because if I'm right in my whole body double theory, which I'm pretty fucking sure I am, the fact that she's like, it'd be simple for the Oracle to split herself in two. And yeah, I do believe that is the case. Yeah, the Oracle could have split herself in two, but she had a body double.
男？乾さんですか？
あれは角袖だでな。どうもいけすか。何か探っておるようじゃが。
Ayato instinctively looked Yu in the eye. He was just as guilty of probing ground as Inui. If anything, Inui was more like his accomplice.
それがさっきの手紙に書いてあったの。
Yu cut in, aware of the uncomfortable position Ayato had found himself in at that moment.
おかしなことになる前によう
Dealt
取り
with?
計らってくれるじゃろう。
Ayo, dealt with? Yoshie nodded triumphantly. Dealt with? What do we mean by dealt with here? Dinner was underway at the Hinagami residence.
綾人さん、
Mayuko suddenly broke her typical
何
silence.
ですか？
警察の方が来ていらっしゃるようですが、何か存じていらっしゃいますか？
いえ、何も。
Ayato kept his answer brief. He was worried he'd let on too much if he spoke at length.
お前も余計なことにかもけず傷を癒せ。治ればすぐしずるについて学んでもらわねばならん。
Hidioma's word was law in this family. Ayato's destiny was to inherit Hinagami Pharmaceuticals, and that meant studying in order to properly take said throne. His foray into the front lines had put that off for a time, but there was no getting out of it
分
now.
かっています。
Thus he had no choice but to just go along with his family's plans for his future. After all, defying his grandfather was a pipe dream, the pinnacle of insolence in this family. Ayato retired to his room. Once there, he lay on the floor, closed his eyes, and gathered his thoughts. Satsuki was the Oracle. The possibility seemed likely when considering what Yoshie had told him earlier. However, Ayato still couldn't get over what he'd seen the day of the festival. Why would they have some sort of body double play the Oracle on stage? So that people don't point out the obvious that that's who it is. So it seems like this inexplicable person. He doubted it was for something as simple as to cover up Satsuki's poor dancing. At present, the most reasonable interpretation was that Satsuki had been the Oracle, but someone else did the dance in her stead. Yes. However, it was still unclear exactly who that mystery person was. Ayako, perhaps? A name came to Ayato's mind for a moment, but he erased it just as quickly. No, I'm not even positive she actually exists. I should only consider that possibility after I know for sure. But I'll just focus on Satsuki. Ayato sat up with that thought. Why was Sachan killed? The Shigasas were most likely involved in her murder. No, they definitely were. The question was exactly who was connected to the murder. Ignoring Yayoi, who'd been born after the incident, the Shigasas consisted of Yoshimitsu, Ryoko, Kensei, Miya, and Saya. Was one of them the killer, or had they all participated in the act? Even if only a few had carried out the actual murder, they might have all been aware of the circumstances surrounding Satsuki's death. Surely they all would have needed to be on the same page beforehand, or to badger the police to call off the investigation. That wasn't all Ayato suspected them of knowing either. The curse of Lord Hina. It had claimed two victims as far as Ayato knew, Sachiko Kawase and Keiko Zaizen. Both of them had been killed under bizarre circumstances after the festival. Plus, there was his mother's suicide to consider. According to Yuzuru, Saya Shigasa had been close to his mother, so if there was anyone who would know about that incident, it'd be her. And while it would have been best to ask her directly, Ayato knew she'd just give him the slip unless he came to her with ironclad proof. It had been nearly 5 years since the latest death, Satsuki's, so finding evidence wasn't going to be easy. He'd have to get his hands on some kind of lead first. I'll investigate that storehouse again. Risky play, bud. Risky play. You were very lucky to get in and out the first time. No, now watch. He's gonna go back to the storehouse, and it's gonna be like tightly locked up, right? They've realized someone got in there, and I'm sure they know who got in there, but they're not gonna press the issue because they don't wanna stir the pot any more than necessary, right? But he's gonna come back and it's gonna be all locked up, right? Everything's gonna be all locked up, barred up, padlock, everything. Fuck, throwing some chains in there. Everything's just locked tight, right? And then he like goes to the storehouse, sees it's all locked shut, and then he hears a voice behind him like, "So you came back, did you?" You can take a flashlight and comb the place from head to toe this time. While I'm at it, I can also give the carvings in the chest another look. Ayato could see silhouettes of snowflakes falling past the folding screen window. If he left now and the snow continued until morning, that'd probably cover his tracks. Oh! Oh, he going right now. Honestly, that would be the smarter play. Go in the cover of night, and also he said the snow would cover his tracks, right? Go in the cover of night where you expect most people would be asleep. But, yeah, I'm sure someone's awake. Ayato picked up the flashlight Yuka had fetched him and checked its batteries. The light bulb shone a yellowish orb on the ceiling. Alright, it's now or never. Ayato slipped his boots on and exited through the veranda. Ballsy play, I like it. The shrine was silent under the dense shroud of night, not so much as a sliver of light beaming out its windows. All that stirred was the snow pelting down from above. Ayato covered his flashlight with his hand to keep anyone from noticing it as he sneaked through the woods. Covered his flashlight with his hand. Why do you have it turned on in the first place? He slipped past the shrine office and went out back. It wasn't long before he reached the storeroom. There's no indication that anyone else had been by since his last visit. The door was still unlocked as well. Ayato wiped the snow off his clothes and the boots before sneaking inside. He finally stopped covering the flashlight after shutting the door behind him. Does your flashlight not have an off switch, buddy? You don't need to keep covering it. Like, if you're not using it, you don't need to cover it. You can just turn it off. The shapes concealed in the dark were revealed in the blink of an eye. Just like last time, he saw nothing aside from the chest and dresser. His footprints from the other day were still there too. Ayato shone his light at the ceiling. As he did, he could see the slanted roof above the beams. There was a window high up, meaning there probably once been a second floor to the storehouse. Ayato stepped onto the floor and approached the dresser. Its mirror reflected the light from the flashlight. Ayato checked the drawers, yet found nothing, just as he'd expected. To be safe, he inspected the back too, only to end up equally empty-handed. It has to be the chest. I just know it. Ayato shone his light on it. The bizarre box was attached to the floor. He removed the clasp and opened the lid once more. For a moment, he felt chilly air emanating from it. He then illuminated its interior and took a closer look. It was long before he found the Ayako letters carved by nails. Ayato looked at it from several different angles, but he couldn't read it as anything other than Ayako. Upon closer inspection, he noticed there were other spots engraved with the same name. Who would have driven someone to carve this? Ayato stepped into the chest and crouched down. The knothole was right there in front of him. He looked through it but saw nothing. No surprise, seeing as how the storeroom was dark. Ayato pressed his own fingernails against the carvings. As he suspected, they were too big for the scratches. Would Sachan's fingers have been a match? Ayato had grown considerably since. He couldn't even compare the size of their hands anymore. His fingers went cold. A draft of cold air was literally rising up from directly beneath him. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's a basement, and that's like a secret hatch to the basement, hence why the chest is built into the wall. Ayato shone his flashlight down. There was a massive floorboard there. The gaps between it and the adjoining boards must have been wide, for he could see pitch-black darkness beneath them. Seeing that that was where the cold air had originated. Strange. Ayato crawled on the floor and shone his flashlight into the biggest gap, which was about 5 millimeters wide. Something's there. Appeared to be stone, or mortar, the storehouse's foundation, perhaps. Ayato got out of the chest and examined the surrounding floor. However, he found no similar gaps, not even by the walls, and so he illuminated the inside of the chest once more. Upon closer inspection, he noticed gaps between the chest's sides and bottom as well. Rather, the base of the chest appeared to have something akin to slatted wood set inside it. He reached his hand down, tried to slide his fingers into the gaps, but to no avail. I had something to stick in there. It was in the Ayato remembered the clasp fastened with string and picked it up. Is that what that's for? Ayato gripped the strings firmly and lowered the clasp into the large gap. He then moved the string as if he were ice fishing, latched onto the baseboard and tugged. It came loose. Ayato grabbed the board while taking care not to drop it. A maw of darkness gaped before him. He shone his flashlight directly into it. Stairs made of stone led down beneath the floor. An earthen landing was visible at the bottom of the steep staircase, indicating it likely wasn't all that deep. Ayato gulped. What's something like this doing here? Though shivers ran down his spine, he couldn't turn back now that he'd found it. Ayato stepped inside the chest once more. Down below was a basement, if it could even be called that. The bottom of the stairs was as cold as a freezer. Likewise, the dirt walls were dark and hard, as though they were actually frozen. The actual space was very small, no bigger than 3.5 meters across. Ayato illuminated his surroundings. Wooden shelves were built into the walls. 2 wicker trunks sat on them. Both were about 60 centimeters long, 30 centimeters wide, 15 centimeters tall. Wait. 2 wicker trunks. Okay. That's not where the body parts are being kept, is it? Quite large, all things considered. Especially for something lurking in such a tiny secret chamber. What's in them? One of the trunks had clearly frayed with age, so Ayato decided it was best left untouched and picked up the other, newer looking one instead. It was rather heavy. The trunk looked soft enough to hold clothes or cloth, but those wouldn't have weighed this much. Yeah? Yeah? Is it what I'm thinking? Ayato lowered the trunk onto the ground. How would someone have gone out of their way to make a secret basement to hide these? Ayato took off the lids, his hands shivering like mad. Inside were pole-like objects wrapped in oil paper. Pole-like. Uh-huh. You mean like fully extended limbs? You mean like an arm and leg that were fully extended so they look straight? There were 4 in total. You mean like 2 arms and 2 legs? Don't look, don't look, don't look. Ayato's brain blared that warning like an air raid siren. He had to see what they were. Thus he unfolded the paper. The first thing he saw was fingers. Yep. Yep. No. Entire human hand. It was small. A woman's. The trunk had clearly been stored here for years, and yet the hand was fresh as any living person's because it was so cold. Ayato gripped the cold hand. Though it lost its warmth and grip and couldn't grip back, it was undoubtedly the very same hand he'd held that day. Ayato picked up the trunk with Satsuki's limbs in it and ascended the stairs, unable to bring himself to check what the other one held. Oh, you're just taking the... That's a very ballsy play. You're just taking that with you. I get it, you probably want to pass it on to the investigator, right? I get that, but that's a very ballsy play. That is a very, very ballsy play.
いけない人。
Yep, yep. I knew this was gonna happen. I thought it was gonna happen a lot sooner, but like before he actually got to investigate. But yep, I knew it. That he was gonna like try to sneak out, right? But someone was gonna catch him. I knew it. And of course there was gonna be someone behind him like, oh, shouldn't have done that, boy. Called that shit. So I stood at the entrance to the storehouse.
今は使われていなくとも、ここは仕草の所有ですよ。いくらひな神とはいえ、何らかの罪に問われるのではありませんか。
Does he kill Saya? Because obviously, like now that he's seen, you know, Satsuki's parts, her limbs, she's gonna think, oh, I have to get rid of him now. Right? And he's gonna kill her in self-defense. Ooh.
罪はあなたたちの方が大きいのではないですか。
私たちの罪。何も知らされておらぬのですね。
Saya giggles.
知らされていない。
お話がしたいのでしたら、母屋へ参りましょう。
Saya turned around and glanced at Ayato.
もちろん、それも持ってきてください。ここに置き去りにしたのがかわいそうですから。
Ayato held the trunk with Satsuki's limbs close to his chest. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Saya didn't say a single word on their trip to the shrine. Then she led Ayato to a room illuminated by the flickering lights of paper lanterns. Ayato set the trunk down and sat with his legs crossed, waiting. Okay. Okay, but maybe. Right? If Inui is to be believed... Right, it was Inui? I believe so. That said... No, it was Yuzuru. Yuzuru. If Yuzuru is to be believed, Saya had a thing for Rika, who was Shizuru's wife. So it would only stand to reason that she would hold, if that's true, that she would hold a grudge against Shizuru for the events that would lead to her suicide. So, if she sees Ayato as someone who can, potentially bring justice to Shizuru, maybe she spills the beans to him in the hopes that she can, get things moving without truly implicating herself in it. She's like, if this kid wants to sacrifice himself to get that truth out there, fine, but she's not going to sacrifice her own position, right? Saya returned, a round tray with tea utensils in hand.
お茶はいかがですか？
結構です。
Couldn't get himself in the mood for that.
そうですか。
Saya brewed tea. Steam wafted from her teacup, filling the room with the rich aroma of green tea. Saya took a breath after having a sip.
さて、何からお話ししましょうか。
Now wait a minute, wasn't there There was that scene. Goddamn, I'm trying to remember the specifics of it. It was very early on. It was the scene I had accidentally, somehow the skip function had, bugged out and I completely skipped it at first. And then I went back and rewatched it, right? There's a man and a woman in a similar setting like this. There's, the paper doors you see. And, there's the wicker trunks. They mentioned the wicker trunks, which Ayato has one. And then after opening the cases or whatever, the guy starts choking out the woman. Was that something we're about to see? Is that something that has happened in the past? I just remembered that.
すべて聞かせてください。
あら、欲張りなのですね。
Yes. Saya giggled once again.
綾人さんは巫女について。
基本的なことしか知りませんよ。十数年おきに現れ、舞を奉納し。
しずるさんに聞いたのですか？
いえ、親父には復員してから一度も会っていませんから。
The way Saya worded her question made Ayato realize that what Yoshie Hutami had told him was true. It seemed both his mother and grandmother had indeed once been the oracle.
彼女は巫女だったのですか？
Ayato continued his interrogation.
彼女。
とぼけないでください。
彼女は巫女ではありませんよ。
Saya shook her head.
巫女は別のお方がきちんと務められておりました。
それは誰ですか？
答える義務はございません。
綾子ですか？
その名をどこで？
それは言えません。
Ayato forced himself to keep his cool after seeing Saya's reaction. So Ayako really does exist. I knew it.
綾子が巫女なのですね。
違います。
Saya stubbornly refused to confirm his suspicions. That's because Ayako was the body double.
では綾子とは何者なのですか？
本当にあなたは何も知らぬのですね。
Saya sneered.
綾子とはさつきのことですよ。
Yes. Saya's confession was almost anticlimactic after all the work Ayato had done to reach this point.
さつきが。
In that case, did she carve her own name into the chest? So that she wouldn't forget it no matter how many times she was called Satsuki?
さつきは何者ですか？
答えられません。
Saya quietly shook her
な
head.
ぜ答えられないのです？
答えようがないからです。
She smiled faintly.
あなたの質問は漠然としていますから。
How? How is that the least bit vague? Because Satsuki is technically two people. If you don't want to tell me, at least be upfront about it. Ayato glared at Saya, but she didn't seem the least bit intimidated.
では、別の件をはっきりとお尋ねします。
いいえ。私がそのようなことをする意味がないでしょう。
それは自分には判断できません。ですが、参道で貼り付けにされ、その獅子がここにあった以上、
私たちの関与。
Saya glanced at the wicker trunk.
確かに彼女のムクロをあそこへ移したのは私です。
なぜそのようなことをし。
なぜ？決まっているでしょう。
Saya rose to her feet. Ayato picked up the trunk and backed away.
それをこちらへよこしなさい。
嫌です。
He slapped her hand
これ
away.
がさつきの手足ならば重要な証拠になります。
それは私のものです。
Okay. Okay.
あんたのじゃない。
Stupid. Like, I get it. You're getting emotional. I can't really fault you for that, but like, it's the middle of the night. You're really gonna raise everyone's suspicions?
なぜそう断言できるのですか？
他にないでしょう。
そうかしら。
Saya's lips curled into a smile.
私はその中身が誰なのかわからないの。
誰？
It was then that Aito recalled something from earlier. There'd been another, older, wicker trunk down in that basement.
他の人の手足も保管していたので。
あら、見ていないの？それはもったいないことをしたわね。
Saya sneered and reached out again. Aito couldn't resist her. Thus, Saya took the trunk and opened the lid. The older woman sighed with rapture.
そうね。これは間違いなく。
Ew, 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 freaky bitch. Freaky bitch. Saya took out one of the arms and lovingly nuzzled her cheek against it. Satsuki's fingers brushed against that cheek almost as if she were still alive.
ここ見てごらんなさいな。小さなほくろがあるでしょ。
まさかもう一つの氷には。
Yeah, and that's why she. Oh, God, you're a freak bitch. God damn. I thought the brother fuckers were the worst ones I had to worry about in this fucking place. But no, now we got the bitch who has to chop off the limbs of the woman she was fiending for, keep them in her basement so she can brush her hand against him every now and again.
あなたの想像通り。
Aito bolted to his feet.
どういうことだ。
Aito gripped Saya by the lapels and shouted in her face.
私はね、リカの手足が好きだ。
Freak bitch.
きめ細かくて白い。
Freaky bitch.
すらりと伸びた指。リカが亡くなってからも、私は彼女の手が忘れられなくて。
Oh, that's.
掘り起こして。
God, that's even worse.
この辺
Like,
りは
yeah,
土
it's
砂
freaky to be like, oh, hey,
腐ってしまうの。
yo, the original Satsuki choked out the body double, right? And it's like, well, I'm just gonna take the limbs for my own personal safekeeping. But then it's just like, yeah, we buried Rika. Just like, I'm gonna dig her up and take her fucking limbs before she rots away.
でもね、リカの体は棺桶の中で綺麗なままだった。
Jesus.
黙れ。
話を聞きたがったのはあなたでしょ。
Saya didn't stop giggling even after Ayato shoved her against the wall.
リカの手足を慎重に切り出したわ。
黙れと言っている。
Ayato gripped Saya's collar.
黙れ。
Ayato dragged her to the floor, hands still firm around her collar. Satsuki's arm fell from her grip. Saya reached out for it. I won't let you touch her ever again. Ah. Ayato straddled Saya and pinned her to the floor. Damn. That's unfortunate, because that's probably the one, like, person who could back up anything. Because what are you gonna do? You're gonna go to Inui and be like, I found her limbs? Like... Saya groaned and grabbed Ayato's arms. Her neck was white as the driven snow. Hi. Ayato strangled her with his gnarled hands. Saya's nails dug into his wrists. However, Ayato ignored the pain and throttled her with even greater strength. He couldn't stop. The strength, experience, and intuition he cultivated on the battlefield returned to the forefront of his mind. And all of them were telling him that this woman would be his ruin if he didn't kill her. Ayato's heart raced a mile a minute with no signs of slowing down. He'd never gotten like that before, not even when he killed enemy soldiers during the war. Saya was staring straight up at him. Dead. Blood pooled in her neck, leaving visible red portions. Ayato's fingers refused to do as he asked. Satsuki's arm lay on the floor like garbage. Ayato picked it up and placed it back in the trunk. Frankly, I had no idea what he was doing. However, he knew he had to do something. So he picked up the trunk, slipped on his boots, and raced outside.